Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengals fan on most of the major platforms, and I am joined here, as always, with my partner in crime, Sam Schneider, and this is a special Super Wildcard edition of Jungle Talk. Yeah,
here we go, playoffs, baby.
Here
playoffs.
we go. Playoffs. There it is. So before we forget, if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all we ask. And Sam, tell them where they can find all your stuff.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Buy and Sell You. I write for Primetime Sports Talk. You can find us at Talk Primetime or Primetime Sports Talk. Say it with me.
.com. There we go. All right. So as you know, this is our, the last playoff edition we were on the other network, not to be mentioned. We're going to treat it like Voldemort. We're never going to talk about it. We were on the other network that
we were both on that network.
And I did the preview to the meltdown game, and you did the recap, and that was the last show you ever did on that channel.
Yep. No, I was out after that.
So that was 2015. So here we are. We're
back again. Guess who's back?
Yeah. Well, we're not just back
again.
Yeah, well, what gets
Bengals back? Tell a friend.
We're not just back. We're better.
Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Sorry.
There you go. All right. So you got a little singing from Sam, which is an added bonus. We don't charge you anything extra for that. Just subscribe. You can hear Sam. Who knows what he'll sing when we win this week? So
that's absolutely right. So while you're subscribing, make sure you hit that bell so you get notifications when the recap goes up, and give us a like. That helps us with the algorithm so that other Bengals fans can see this video pop up on YouTube.
That's right. And converse with other fans. We've been averaging 40, 50, 60 comments an episode, and I'm loving seeing everybody talking. So let's take care of a little business before we get into the game.
Hey, Mark, real quick. You know what? I think it just came to me. I think if we win this game, I think for the next preview, I'm gonna put something out there and let people comment down below. Make sure they've subscribed. Make sure they follow us on Twitter, and I'm gonna give away a signed jersey.
Okay, well there you have it.
Maybe it'll be one of the wide receivers. Maybe he wears number 85.
Maybe. I don't know. Hey, oh, there you go. So it's either a Chad Johnson or the current 85. So
I'm gonna say it's current, and 85 could get pretty rare pretty soon.
There you go. Yes.
Next year.
There you go. So
it just came to me. You know what? We'll do that in the preview. If we win this week, we'll do it in the preview next week. So everybody come back, check it out, and we'll do it.
There you go. Let's take care of a little business now. Next year's teams are announced. The schedule doesn't come out until April, I think, or it's either right before or right after the draft. I think it's after the draft in May, but we're going to be playing the NFC South, which gives us Atlanta, New Orleans, and we're going to be playing the AFC East. So we're going to get, we're going to get, the Patriots, the Bills, all that on our schedule next year. And this is the difference. We talk about this in the schedule show. Our 3 fill-in games, because we're a first-place team, our 3 fill-in games are other playoff teams. So they've already announced it. We get Kansas City, Tennessee, and Dallas. So this is the reason why I always saw Manning Brady. They were always in the playoffs. And if they didn't play each other through the regular schedule, they were always going to add Indianapolis, New England when Manning, when Manning was playing. So that's why you always got that. Well, we're going to start seeing Mahomes is always going to be our add-in game. And maybe they'll throw in Buffalo. They're going to work that in. So as long as Burrow is Burrow, they're going to keep doing that. So KC, Tennessee, Dallas, those are the games. Our add-in games this year weren't that easy. We got the Niners because they were a fellow last place team, but they were a fellow last place team because all the injuries. And then we weren't the same team as last year. So that's why I always don't put a lot of stock in strength of schedule and all that. But that was announced. The Raiders, I want to talk a little bit about the end of the Sunday night game, because we did our video before that game. We didn't know who we were playing. And the Raiders had an opportunity to run the clock out. Now, it wasn't because the Raiders wanted to screw the Steelers and all that, but they had to strategically think about it. They took a timeout, and I've seen interviews where they talked about it. They would have got an extra day rest, and they would have got Kansas City instead. So they consciously decided, hey, we want to win the game, and the extra day rest doesn't matter, because they could have played Sunday night, which would have been a full 7 days of rest. And instead, they're on, not only are they Saturday, but they're the first game Saturday. And they're going back east. So literally they took the least amount of rest, but they consciously did that. The Steelers sneak into the playoffs, which I don't care because I don't see them going to Kansas City and winning. But what is good for us, or just in general, we can chuckle, is the Steelers just cost themselves draft position. I mean, they absolutely are in the quarterback market. I have talked to other Steeler fans who have lamented about how their team was not in the quarterback market the last 3 years when all the quarterbacks came out.
Right.
So here they are in a year where there isn't. I mean, you got the Ole Miss guy who got hurt in his bowl game, kind of leading the chart, the top of the list, but there's no Trevor Lawrence, there's no Burrow, there's no Herbert. So not only do they come in a lean year, but they cost themselves probably the difference between being 15 or 16 and being, now probably 20 or,
I'd like to also put the backing into the playoffs in perspective too. There's all the talk about the Chargers taking the time out and everything. And it's, if anybody thinks the Raiders were just going to kneel down and take the tie, they're wrong. The Raiders were still going to try to win. The fact of the matter is the Chargers called the timeout and gave the Raiders time to draw up 2 plays and say, this is what we're going to do now. Right. And boom, boom, it worked and they won. Right. So it was a dumb timeout, but it wasn't going to, I don't think it was going to end in a tie anyway, unless the Chargers were actually able to stop them. Right. But their best chance of stopping them was not to call a timeout and make them actually have to play off the cuff. You know what I mean? I think there was only 5 seconds on the play clock at that point. Why you call a timeout now? Just go with it. But here's the thing that I think is interesting. I was rooting for a tie because I hate the Steelers and I want the Steelers out. But here's the thing. If they tied and the Steelers were knocked out of the playoffs, that means Large Ben goes out on a win.
Right. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
That's his retirement party.
I want him to remember that his last game was a loss because we all know he's not going to win the Super Bowl. No. So, I'm not saying he didn't have a good career. I'm not saying that he's going to think of it that way, but I prefer to think of it that way. Yeah. I prefer to see him ride off into the sunset with a loss. So, I'm just fine with him playing against the Chiefs.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we would never see him anyway. It's not like it's an issue for us at all. Right. But like I said, I'm just thinking my first thing was draft position. Was like, here it is, because I've been hearing that from, fellow couple friends that are Steeler fans. And I've said, you guys, why weren't you trading up for Herbert, a couple of months ago? I mean, where were you when these quarterbacks are coming out, so you get what you get, so, and on one other note, we have, Broncos requested an interview with Brian Callahan.
Right.
Our coaches are out there. I don't think they hire Brian Callahan, but
no.
But I think his dad has a history with the team.
He probably does. Maybe, his dad has a history with pretty much everybody, I think.
Yeah, well, that's true.
In one shape or form. Here's the thing. I would have to go back and look. I don't think Brian Callahan has ever called any plays. So I'd find it really, really hard to believe that a team is going to hire an offensive coordinator that's never called plays before, that doesn't have that on his resume. Right. As in, I called plays this season when this team scored X number of points and was this efficient on third down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I doubt that's going to happen. At the same time, I think Callahan is, reasonably easily replaced, but at the same time, I don't know the relationship that he has with our offense. I don't know how well he gets along with Burrow and the receivers. Right. I would assume fairly well.
Right.
You know what I mean? But Zach's the one calling plays, so I think you can easily replace that guy. But I agree with you. I'm not seeing it.
No, it's okay. And the other thing is that we don't know, he's been there for Burrow's whole time. He's been there for, for T. Higgins 2 years. He's been our coordinator.
Sure.
So my attitude is like, if it ain't broke,
Yeah.
Sometimes, you think about Pat Sajak leaving Wheel of Fortune. Merv Griffin didn't want to give him the big contract. He leaves Wheel of Fortune and the ratings plummet. And he comes back and the ratings come back and you can't explain it.
Your analogies just baffle me sometimes.
No, sometimes, yeah, you know what? But I think why overthink it? If it's working, don't mess with it.
Right.
That's my thing. So let's just
Well, and you know what? I'll go ahead and piggyback on that. And I don't want to make this show all about the offseason because obviously we're going to have offseason shows after we win the Super Bowl. But the same thing goes with we're in the playoffs this week. Playoffs. We're in the playoffs this week, and there are already Bengals fans out there calling for firing Lou Anarumo and hiring Mike Zimmer.
Yeah.
You guys have got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
No. Once again, it ain't broke. Don't fix it. Number two, Mike Zimmer is 182 years old. It's a young man's game now. I'm not saying he doesn't have anything left in the tank, but also, shouldn't you be concentrating on the playoffs right now?
Yes.
Shouldn't you be worried about what the team is doing right now instead of being like, oh, we should go get Mike Zimmer?
Yeah, no, stop.
It baffles me. It absolutely baffles me.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's get into this game. So we're
going to preview this game now.
We're going to preview this game now.
Let's preview this game.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to do what we usually do. We're going to talk about things we're not feeling good about, things we're feeling good about. We're going to start right away we always start with the bad.
Start with the bad, get to the good.
Yeah. I'm concerned about Crosby and, getting there. I mean, he's just been we didn't have an answer for him in Vegas. I mean, we sat there live in Las Vegas, watched the game, and Burrow got sacked a number of times. So we need to come up with something because Gakwe and Crosby, we cannot have them wreaking havoc. It's the strongest part of their defense is their defensive line. I don't fear their secondary or their linebackers, but their defensive line, I do. Everything starts there. So we need to scheme a deal. And we saw it in Vegas. So this shouldn't be a surprise, but we have to have an answer for Crosby. We just do.
Yeah, I agree completely. This is a guy that's 6'5", 255, and 255 is probably generous. But he's a TJ Watt type. He's not quite as talented, but he's still very good. But he did put numerous hurries on Burrow in Vegas. I think he only had 3 tackles, and one was a tackle for loss, and then he had another solo and another assist on one. We limited some damage on him in Vegas, but he was still always in the backfield. And you're talking about a guy that's going against the weakest part of our line. That rotating, carousel of guys on the right side ever since Reef went out is a problem. It's a problem. And God forbid if Isaiah Prince is out there, he's going to get absolutely eaten alive.
Right.
It is really, really important for our tight ends to step up in this game, particularly Drew Sample. And I'm not talking just chipping. I'm talking about being on the end of the line, even if they know you're not going out for a route. We got a double team. We got a double team Max Crosby. And actually, Ngakoue had an even better game against us in Vegas.
Right.
2 solo tackles, 1 assist, a quarterback hit, forced a fumble.
Right. And I remember that Burrow fumble. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was on 59% of the snaps. He normally plays 70. I can't remember if maybe he came up ailing, if he had, an issue at some point, but that was the lowest number of snaps I think he's played since week 1 or 2 when he only played like 40%. So in 59% of the snaps, that's the damage he did. So, the Raiders very rarely blitz. They do not blitz often at all because their line is so strong and their interior linemen are strong too.
Right.
So, this is a big concern for me. And I actually think, even with trying to protect against Max coming off the edge against that weak side of the line, I actually think the X factor in this game for us is probably Trey Hopkins. Right. In the past, we've seen him play well. We've seen what he's capable of. Right. This year, we haven't seen it as much since he's come back from injury. But he really needs to anchor that line and make sure that all Burrow is worrying about is what's coming from the edge. Because if Hopkins starts letting the interior lineman through, we got big problems.
Yeah. No, and the coaches are going to need to scheme. Joe cannot hold on to the ball. This has got to be 1, 2, 3 out, 1, 2, 3 out. Rolling. If you need to buy time, have the pocket move, have Joe roll out. But we need to scheme to get rid of the ball.
Agreed.
It's basically that simple. I've said this before when we on previous teams, years where I say, don't ask guys to do what they're not capable of doing. We used to constantly ask Alex Redmond to do things he physically wasn't capable of.
Right.
We have to understand, all right, so the right side of our line is weak. Let's scheme something away from that. Joe, don't hold the ball too long.
Yeah, it's gotta be Sample in there, especially. You got to get Sample in there helping to block Max Crosby.
Yeah. So the next concern I had is obviously we seem to always struggle with the tight ends. Darren Waller, he didn't have the touchdown. Morrow had the touchdown, but he did still have 116 yards in week 11, and he's back. So, we can't, I don't want to see the stuff we see when we struggle with Andrews, Kittle. I mean, we can go through our issues with tight ends, but, clearly, that's a soft spot for us. So
yeah, and what I wrote down was actually Renfro/Waller. This is a situation that we haven't had to deal with very often. And that is, well, first I'll say that in my opinion, Darren Waller is probably the best tight end in the league. And you guys can throw me on a cross if you want. I think he's better than Kelsey. I think he's better than Kittle. Because they can line him up outside and he can run like a wide receiver. I mean, they'll line him up wide right and throw him a deep ball. You know what I mean? He's not just the over the middle guy that we always have issues with, but he is a move the chains guy. As tight ends are wont to be. It's the same thing with Renfro. Renfro came up, he's slot guy, slot wide receiver. Now they line him up far left, far right. They move him all around the field. If he was just a slot guy, I'd be like, cool. Mike Hilton is arguably the best slot corner in the NFL this year. I feel comfortable covering him, but they're going to move Renfro around all over the place. You're talking about, obviously there's no Henry Ruggs. It hasn't been for a while, but Brian Edwards and Zay Jones are just kind of okay. They're role players. People expected a big breakout from Brian this year, but that kind of never came. I think he's got 600 yards, but Renfro and Waller, just the fact that those guys are interchangeable, they can both work the slot. They can both work outside. They can both block. They're gritty guys. Yeah. This is something you're used to having one team have that Swiss Army knife guy. You're not used to having one team have two of those dudes. Right. And we controlled it in the first matchup. So, I'm confident that we can do it again, but you can't, what happens when you assume you make an ass out of Uma Thurman. Yeah. So you gotta be prepared for both of those dudes and the fact that they'll be all over the field. I mean, Renfro is one of the most underrated receivers of the league.
He's got scrappy. Scrappy was the word you use. Gritty, but I use scrappy.
Scrappy. But I mean, the dude's he finished the regular season 103 catches, 1,038 yards, 9 touchdowns, and an average of 10 plus. You would think maybe he had half that number of catches for about 600 yards as a slot guy. He ain't a slot guy. He's dangerous.
No, and most of those stats were put on the second half of the year. Yeah. So after Ruggs was gone, so he was not the starter entering the year. So Waller missed 6 games, still had 665 yards for a 12.1 clip. Right. Only had 2 TDs, but caught 55 balls. You got to worry about those guys, man. Yeah. The last thing I have here has to do with, the Raiders are really good at not giving up the big play. And that's why, if you think about the Vegas game, we didn't hit any big ones. And this was a 16-13 game, in the third quarter. So, we blew it out later with the Apple interception and the forced turnover and stuff. But we were a close game at half, and then it was 16-13 at one point. So
I think it was still 16-13 at the start of the fourth, if I'm not mistaken.
So, like I said, the Raiders are really good at not giving up the big play. We've feasted on the big play, so that's a concern for me as well. Is that if we keep trying to hit the home run, we got to take what's being offered, move down the field, be patient, and then kind of lure them in, and then maybe hit the big one. But this is a team that is geared to not give up the big play, and this is a team that really believes they're on a mission with Madden death and all that stuff. This is a team that they believe in themselves. So. And they've got no pressure on themselves this week because we're almost a touchdown favorite. So
it's funny. I actually inserted myself into a conversation on Twitter where I saw another Bengal fan talking to some Raider fans, and I made a couple snarky comments, just your general, kind of
Twitter
friendly
stuff,
trash talk, like nothing bad, just friendly trash talk, and it was like all of Raiders Twitter was just descended on me immediately. So it was a little dicey for a minute, but then, we opened up and we started, kind of talking about, the fact that this is kind of like, I mean, you might as well call this the Rodney Dangerfield Bowl, because neither of these teams have ever gotten any respect in the last 15, 20 years. And sometimes rightfully so, but also many times, not.
Right.
And they're like, well, we're used to not getting respect. That's how we like it. And I was like, well, we're used to not getting respect. That's how we like it.
Yeah.
And we got people, analysts finally jumping on our bandwagon this year, which I don't really like, because I prefer to have that chip on my shoulder.
Right. But Burrow's going to gravitate people over. There's, we've had Kay Adams all along, but you have your Lewis Riddicks and your different people that are coming around, and they're just. But Burrow has that where you eventually,
But, I mean, what about Colin Cowherd? All of a sudden is
he's our best friend.
People. Yeah. Of all people, he's like a huge Bengals fan. Burrow should win MVP over Rodgers.
He was the number one person saying
the Super Bowl.
He was the number one person saying that Burrow should boycott, pull an Eli Manning and wind up in Miami or New York.
Exactly.
It's like, really?
But, that's really? I mean, that's TV for you. Half the time they're just handed a script before they go on. Like, you're arguing that Burrow sucks, and he's like, but Burrow doesn't suck, and they're like,
it doesn't matter.
Right. That's what you're arguing today.
I have sat there and watched ESPN and swore that what's his face? Who's the mouth that's always yelling? Michael. I'm trying to remember who I'm talking about. The loudmouth on ESPN.
Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have sat there and thought they handed him and said, "You're arguing this point." And he embraces it. He vehemently argues some of the stupidest positions you'll ever hear.
Well, and he's usually arguing with Max Kellerman. Yeah. And it's the same thing. I think they both show up. They both get a piece of paper and they go, "Oh man," or they're like, "All right,
yeah."
It's all TV, but yes, you're right. People are jumping on the bandwagon because you cannot really not with Burrow and Chase and what this team has done. But when I was talking to the Raiders guys, I only came up with this because, you mentioned like the Madden thing and everything. One of the guys was like, I'm not saying we're a team of destiny or anything, but we won 4 straight to make it into the playoffs. The team is playing way better than it did when you played us in Vegas.
Yeah.
And actually all you need to do is look at that Chargers game. I mean, they withstood everything. Herbert converted like 7 of 8 fourth downs in that game.
Right.
Or from like the fourth quarter into overtime.
Right.
And they withstood all that and still won. And John Carlson, who is an outstanding kicker.
Yes.
Just an outstanding kicker. I mean, you guys might make fun of me, but if this comes down to a field goal, which we don't want it to, obviously I love Evan. I trust in Evan. Carlson is no joke. The guy is 40 of 43 this year, and he's 6 of 7 from 50 plus.
Right.
So
only caveat is he's an indoor kicker.
He isn't. That's a great point.
Now, there is going to be an issue. We're going to get into that because that's my number one thing on my good list.
Yeah, we're definitely going to go there. Yeah, the ball's going to be tight. Well, let's talk about the good. Let's talk
about it. Well, I've got, obviously, first of all, we can put away all the lack of experience talk and all that. This is Carr's first playoff game, Burrow's first playoff game. Both of these teams have no playoff experience.
Right.
So So that's out the door. So we're on a level playing field there. Okay. And then we're rested. Okay. By beating Kansas City, we got to rest everybody last week.
Yeah.
This team played, and we went through our COVID last week. So our guys are on, our guys are back. We already weathered that storm in terms of the COVID. And then using the word weather is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
So I have
it's gonna be cold.
It's going to be, and Carr, I believe I read, is 0 for 5 in cold weather and has never put up more than 17 points for the Raiders.
That's correct. 0 and 5, never scored more than 17 when the temperature is 37 degrees or less, and it will be less.
Yes, it's going to be in the 20s, possible snow. So all that works in our favor, Yeah. And this team, like I said, could not have gotten less. They were the last game, went into overtime, played the entire overtime period, and literally they're the first game on Saturday. So
yeah, I'm not going to put too much stock in that, only because, when you're talking about a professional athlete going to the playoffs, adrenaline takes over at some point. The only portion of stock I would put in that is maybe when the fourth quarter comes around, if you kept putting the defense back on the field, if the offense turned the ball over and the defense spending too much time out there, maybe they're going to be gassed. But you never know. I mean, adrenaline takes over in those situations. So if they somehow jump out to 2 touchdowns, maybe we're playing comeback and they can afford to do that.
Well, I'm smelling a big mix-in game here. Is it on? Mix-in, a little more mix-in, and a little more mix-in.
Yep.
And then you break out the, lull them in and then hit them with the big one. But I'm getting ahead of myself there because that's for our prediction. Last one is Burrow. I mean, listen, this is whole culmination throughout the entire season. You're 2-0 against the Steelers. What does that mean to you? That means that we're 2-0 against the Steelers. We have bigger aspirations than being 2-0 against the Steelers. This whole talk is built up to this. I saw a graphic today that it talked about Burrow in clutch games. So it had the LSU Clemson game and obviously the title game. And then it had the game against Kansas City and his last game against Baltimore. So it was 4 games. It was like 27 touchdowns, no interceptions. It was just, so hopefully, I mean, this is a money game. And I trust Burrow. So I'm hoping, we get that performance out of him. He doesn't try to do too much. Don't hold the ball too long, but I really believe, and this team's hungry. This team is so ready to just get that 31-year-old monkey off their back.
Right.
I sense it that this is the year. Also, what makes me feel really good is the fact that, and you pointed out, I didn't realize, because we're both wearing our black jerseys today.
That's right.
The jersey selection for this Sunday or this Saturday is black jerseys, white pants with the orange stripe. And you pointed something out to me that I didn't even know. So go ahead and tell them what you pointed out.
Absolutely. Everybody knows, if you haven't heard yet, I'll enlighten you that the playoff losing streak began. It's referred to by many a fan as the Bo Jackson curse,
right?
Because the first loss was to the Raiders in the game where we ended Bo Jackson's career.
Yeah, we have a hip injury,
and it wasn't a dirty hit or anything like that. It was routine. But that finished his career. The previous game was when we beat the Houston Oilers, and I want to say it was 41-10. We killed them.
Yeah.
In that game, that is our last playoff win. That was 1991. We were wearing black jerseys, white pants with an orange stripe, and orange socks. That is what we are wearing on Saturday. And if you think that's a coincidence, you don't know the new Bengals marketing department very well, because I guarantee you they planned that out to a T. And actually, if you look up the picture, just look up, Bengals Oilers, and look at them. And it's honestly, the stripe is down the side of the pants. It's not that different from what we wear now. It's just that we're a little more modern. But you got to love nods like that. You got to love.
It's like I said, so that's another thing that makes me feel really good. So
Yeah.
that concludes most of my good stuff. I mean, I feel really good going into this game. We couldn't ask for a better position in terms of rest and how everything kind of played out for us. And it all started with the big win, over Kansas City, which gave us the ability to kind of run this timeline. So
Yeah, I'll tack on. I'm basically just tacking on the same things you said because I agree with most of your good. The team is hungry. You talked about Joe Burrow. You're talking about a guy who is he's got a 99 passing rating against the blitz, or 99 passing rating when he's not blitzed, 128 when he is, which is absurd. Now, I know I said the Raiders don't blitz very often, but somebody needs to be telling him this week that this defensive front is like seeing a blitz because they're going to get back there a lot. So I like Burrow under pressure to do some damage. Overall, I agree 100% with you, especially because of the weather on Joe Mixon. This has to be Mixon. And you're talking about a guy who's played 3 games against the Raiders. He's got 356 total yards and 5 touchdowns in those 3 games.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And when it's really cold like that, and it's harder to grip the football and it's tight and you can't squeeze it at all, the best thing to do is to put it in the gut of your workhorse and let him run. And the Raiders know he's going to do that. But the guys that I mentioned earlier, like Ngakoue and Crosby, those guys are really good at rushing the passer. They're not that good. And also one of the interior defensive linemen that had a great game against the Chargers, his name escapes me, is also not that great against the run. So they can be run on. The Raiders are basically sitting right around, depending on which website you go to, which stats you look up, the Raiders are sitting right around 20th against the run and around 20th against the pass as well. They don't allow a bunch of big plays, but they are the most susceptible team against intermediate plays. So I really like the chances when we got to convert third downs of going to T. Higgins.
Yes.
I really, really like him, about 11 yards down the field. But it's all got to start with a running game.
Yeah. And Boyd and Uzama.
And the Raiders know it's coming. So you're going to know real quick in that first quarter whether that's going to work. They're going to know it's coming. They're going to be trying to stop Mixon. So if he's getting stopped for 1 yard every time, it might be a long day. But if he's still rattling off 4 yards every time he carries the ball, because I think his career average against the Raiders is somewhere around 4.5 to 4.6. If he's rattling off 4 yards when they know it's coming, then that could be a really, really good thing. And it's going to set up the play action and it's going to put them on their heels.
I will jump in and say that it's very important that we have good first down plays. Getting in the 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5 will lead to 3rd and 1s, will lead to 3rd and 3s. We don't want to be sitting there at 3rd and 10. That's not what we want to be. So
right.
I think getting that 4 or 5 yards on first down, whether it's just a screen pass or handing Mixon, which is just an extended, handoff,
sure,
or running Joe, it's going to be key. If we can get into 2nd and 5s and 2nd and 4s a lot, we're going to have a really good day.
Yeah. And, especially, like you said, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4s, that's the time when you can take your shot. You know what I mean?
Oh,
you say, well, I could pick up 3rd and 4. So maybe here on 2nd and 4, this is when we, take a shot at Jamar Chase. Let's stretch the field. Let's keep them honest. Bengals scoring 27.1 points per game this year. That's really, really good. That's actually second in their history to when they scored 28 per game, I believe, the last time they went to the Super Bowl. So, they're going to get their shots down the field. Burrow is still going to pass. He's not going to have, I think it was 149 yards at the game we were at in Vegas.
Yeah. No, he didn't throw for it. It was a mixing game. That was a mixing game. We didn't have any big plays in Vegas. He was under 200 yards. It just wasn't. Darren Waller had almost as many yards as Burrow had.
Yeah.
It was one of those kind of games. So I want the W here. So
Yeah, however you get it, but yeah, we got to run the ball in order to open it up. I just don't want to be one dimensional. So it's gonna be pretty clear, I think, fairly early, maybe in the first 3 drives. If Mixon is only able to pick up 1 yard or 2 yards each time, and then we have to just throw the ball the whole time, that'll be a problem. I will caution everybody out there, because this is a total Cincinnati thing, my thing included, myself included. Do not panic if the Raiders get out to an early lead. Do not panic. This is a second half team, and I'm not saying that ironically. This is a second half team. You saw it against the Chiefs. We keep up, we make adjustments, and then we come back. So this is going to take a full team participation. This is going to be a full game. It's going to be all 60 minutes. The Raiders are not going to go quietly.
No,
at all.
All right. Well, with that, why don't you give us your prediction?
All right, here we go. I'll start with the stat. The Raiders, when they allow 100 yards this season, are 5-6 to running backs. They're 5-6. When they keep a running back under 100 yards, they're 5-1. So we're going to try to run the ball. However, I do not think Mixon is going to get to that 100 yards, but it's still going to drop the Raiders to 5-2 when they hold a running back under 100 yards. I think Mixon gets to around 86 or so. I think Burrow cannot be stopped. I think he cannot be stopped. I think the Raiders score a late touchdown to keep it close. Maybe they even have to kick an onside kick, go for 2 points first, try an onside kick. I'm seeing Cincinnati 26, Raiders 22.
You've got a closer game than me. I think it's going to be, I think both teams are going to come out conservative to try to feel each other out. I think there's going to be a lot more running involved or controlled passing because of the weather. And I think we'll be leading at half, but it won't be a big lead. So I see kind of a similar game to where we had the beginning in Vegas, but I think that we eventually put this away. I've got us 28-17 is what I've got us at. I think we're able to, this team, I just think is a team, this is the year. I think this team, they're ready to just end the playoff drought, get the monkey off their back, and move forward.
I'm all for it.
And I really think that happens this week. I'm really, really, really fired up, as I know most Bengal fans have been like gnawing at the bit. The good news is it's the first game. So we don't have to wait long. I mean, it's the very first one. So that's it. I'm looking forward to it. Want to be blowing that victory horn on Sunday, Saturday after the game. So all right. Well,
same. And I gotta write a season recap for the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't have to do it until we're done. So I'm hoping I got 4 weeks to go.
That's right, baby. Super Bowl, championship game, Super Bowl. Championship game, Super Bowl. I'm just gonna rock. There you go. That's right. So, all right. With that, remind everybody where they can find your stuff.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Buy and Sell You. I write for Primetime Sports Talk, which is at Talk Primetime. You can find Mark on all major platforms at LA Bengals Fan. Please make sure you throw us a like so that all the other Bengals fans can see it. Give us a subscribe, hit that bell notification, and comment down below, baby. We want to hear your scores. We want to hear your scores. Let's go.
All right. Well, with that, we will be back with the recap right after the game on Saturday. And I'm going to say, hoo day, everybody.
Hoo day.
Take care.